All right, so there's my Knolly Fugitive138 and my Privateer141. Uh, you know, right next to each other. Uh, Again, I have both these bikes having the same tire setup. Recon, 29ers. They're both 29ers, right? Both bikes are 29ers. Recon 2.6 tires. They're basically the same tires, right? The two, both front and rear is the same, right? 2.6 both front and rear on both of them. And the cassette's the same, both XT cassettes, XT chain, 32 tooth oval chain rings on both of them. Crank length is 160 on both of them. Pedals the same on both of them, right? As far as the head tube angle, right now this is on the stack setting. Stack setting on this, at least Knolly, the number they give is 65 degrees. Privateer gives 64.5 degrees. I just a moment ago measured. I actually measured at the fork tube because the thing is the head tube, because it's tapered, you really can't measure it. So this is the straightest part. So I measured on the stanchion on both bikes, and they both measured the same angle. So I don't know what to say about that. But so let's say the head tube angle is pretty much very close to each other. So the only real difference now is obviously the suspension, right? Both of these have different suspension. They both have horse link, both 4-bar horse link, but the Knolly has they're 4x4. So they're the shock link, the shock right here is separate from the rest of that, and it makes it more independent. It makes the shock a little bit more independent from the forces of I guess the chain, the driving force and the braking forces. But realistically, they very close. The main thing is that the Knolly has a little bit more support, like in the mid-stroke, compared to the Privateer. The Privateer it seems to sit a little bit more in the mid-stroke. It seems to go through it a little bit more. But at the initial plushness is firmer, where here the initial plushness is a little softer. But again, they're using different shocks, so it's hard to say if it's a shock or is it suspension. Unless I have both the same shock, so that way the air volume is the same, and because I have these set at 20% sag on both bikes for the front suspension and the rear suspension, 20% sag. And no volume reducers. I took out all the volume reducers for both the shock and the fork on both bikes, because I prefer that feel. And then I'm a light guy. I'm only butt naked. I'm only 140 pounds, so I'm pretty light. I never even came close to bottom either one of these bikes out. But then again, I don't really do jumps and stuff. I mainly just trail ride, and I like to ride technical, rocky trails, real technical, real rocky trails. So the closest I've gotten to bottom both of these bikes out is probably within an inch of bottom out for both of them, both front and rear. So I think my 20% sag for both bikes is good without any volume spacers, because that extra that last inch of travel both front and rear for both bikes, that's your safety margin. That's like just in case if I do a jump or a drop or whatever, let's say I case it, that extra inch right there will give me that extra forgiveness that screw up if I screw up. So that's sort of an insurance policy. Both bikes set up wise, I try to get it as close as possible, so that way there isn't a difference. Say for example, if you use different tires or you use different tire pressure, both of these have the same tire pressure. The rear on both these bikes is 20 psi, and the front is the front is 20 psi, and the rear is 22.5 psi. So again, everything's I'm trying to replicate everything and make everything the same as much as I can, So that way, it really boils down to, geometry of the bike, the kinematics, kinetics. No, I didn't say that right. Kinematics. Anyways, whatever. How you pronounce that? So it's the suspension design, and also I guess to an extent the suspension, the fork. Cause that's a Fox 36, and that's a Pike Ultimate, and the Float X versus Float X2. So there is that difference there. But otherwise, these bikes are competitors to each other, right? Both these bikes are competing for the same the same market, sort of same class. Basically, a trail bike, aggressive trail bike, right? 150 travel in front, about 140 in the back. This is 138, that's 141. So let's call it 140. Both aluminum frames. This one here is a budget, for price conscious. This one is a lot more expensive. At full retail, at full retail to your door, shipped to your door, you could get this for about $5,000. That's full retail. That's not discounts or sales clearance or nothing like that. The Knolly full retail, as you see it, to your door, it's about $7,000. That's full retail, and I didn't pay full retail for this one. I bought it when it was on when they were having a sale or clearance. So when I bought this bike, it was still more than that at full retail. But these are more expensive components, and a little bit more expensive frame. So in that regards, even though they were meant to do the same thing and be in the same market, but this is just a little bit more higher end parts and more expensive parts. But with that said, riding both bikes, they feel quite a bit different. Not necessarily in their how much travel they have. That feels, well, actually that does feel a little bit different as well. But I think that's partly because I haven't finished tuning this bike yet. Tuning the damping. So I think I have to sag right good, but I need to adjust the damping more because this one has more. This one has both high speed and low speed rebound and compression on both front and rear. So that's a lot more adjustment. Well, this one only has rebound and compression front and rear. There's no high speed, low speed. It's just rebound and compression. That's it. So a lot simpler to tune versus this one. So I think I still need to work some of the bugs out on this one. I'm pretty close to. I think I'm probably within 2 clicks, I believe, away from getting it just right for each of the settings. Within 2 clicks, maybe a click even. So that leaves basically, the bike itself, the frame. I even leave the cockpit as close as I can. You can see my saddle pointing down. That's for for climbing. When you're climbing, the saddle's going to level out, right? The seat height to saddle and all this other stuff. I try everything to keep as close as possible to the same as I can on everything, right? So riding both these bikes, they really do feel different. The Privateer, because it's longer, has a longer chainstay, 440, versus the Knolly at the slack head angle. I think it's at the slack angle. I think the chainstay is 432 or 433, and the steep angle is around 430 or 431. It's like it's a couple millimeters difference between slack and steep. So the longest one versus the longest setting on this one versus just because this one's fixed, you still have a difference of about 8 millimeters. And you might think, 8 millimeters is barely anything. It's hardly anything at all. But this bike here, it feels way more stable, way more stable than this bike does. On high speed stuff, on rocky, all the stuff that I like. When I do that high speed stuff, or when I do that really technical descents, really rocky, rooty, chunky stuff, this bike feels so much better than this bike does. Again, I think that part of that might have to do with suspension tuning, but I think I'm pretty close. But this just feels stable. This one doesn't. On climbing, you would think, oh, this might be a better climber. It's not. The Privateer is a better climber. It just climbs better. It's like I have more traction because again the chainstay is a little bit longer. I have more traction. It just climbs better. The slack angle on this one has it drops the bottom bracket almost half an inch lower than this bottom bracket height is. So when I'm climbing technical stuff, rocky stuff, I'm constantly hitting my pedal on this one, and it messes me up. Well, this one I just about clear it. Sometimes when I do hit the pedal, it just barely brushes it really lightly, just barely taps the rock. Barely kisses the rock, and so it's no big deal. But this one, it hits it harder, and when it hits it harder than that, it actually unbuckles my foot pedal, right? Because that's how the crank rudder, that's how this design works. Because when you hit it from the bottom, it basically it expands out and it releases the cleat, right? So yeah, so this one doesn't climb as well. Even though you would think, maybe if I put it on the steep head angle, it would climb better. And I think it did. As far as bottom bracket clearance, it did. It actually it's the same as this. Once it goes into the steep head angle, the bottom bracket height is the same. But the problem with this is that chainstay is shorter. And basically I have like less traction. And I can feel it. And that's noticeable. So basically, the Privateer, for the most part, it's better. It's just a better feeling bike. It just rides better. The only downside that I can think of with the Privateer compared to the Knolly Fugitive, the Privateer141 on tight switchbacks, when I'm going around tight switchback, it's harder. It's like it's harder for me to go around the switchback, whereas the Knolly is easier. And it's not that much of a difference. They're both very close. But that is enough of a difference where I could feel that the Knolly is slightly easier. And that's about the only advantage that the Knolly has, is that going around the tight switchback. And I guess the other thing is that, in the mid-stroke support on the rear suspension, the Knolly feels a little bit better. It doesn't feel like it sits as in the stroke, if that makes any sense. But that doesn't bother me with the Privateer. That might make this one pedal a little bit better, I think, because of that support. Whereas this one, it might not pedal as well. But realistically, I don't really, because this is a better climber. That difference in that mid-stroke support is not enough. This is still a better climber. It's a better descender. Really, I think the only advantage that Knolly would have is if you're in tight switchbacks or tight trails, the Knolly could be a little better because it goes around little tight corners a little bit easier. That's about it. Otherwise, I think the Privateer is a superior bike. So there's I think it was it a year ago or 2 years ago now, maybe a year and a half. One of those mountain bike magazine, was it Vital MTB or one of those? Anyways, one of those magazines. They had the shootout. Bunch of different bikes, and both these bikes were in the same shootout, and they compared the two, and the Privateer won out. And they were saying, oh, it climbs so well and it does this, blah blah blah. Even though they didn't really have anything bad to say about Knolly, everything about Knolly was also positive, but the Privateer was just better. Overall, which is better, and I have to agree with them. The Privateer really is a better bike overall, even though, because this is a GX build, the component is a little bit, less than the XT build. The XT build is always, when you look at different brands, if they have an XT build and a GX build, the XT is usually always a little bit more expensive, like a couple $100, just the components alone. But this thing, the frame is more expensive. Because you have custom tubing and stuff, whereas this one is just off-the-shelf tubing. Little things like that. But overall, what really matters is how does it ride? How does it feel? How does it make you feel? How do you feel on it, on the bike? What makes you feel more confident? Feels better. I say it goes to the Privateer141. It's a much more forgiving bike. Whereas the Knolly, You know, it's kind of it feels kind of twitchy, sort of going fast stuff and rocky stuff, chunky stuff. It feels a little twitchy. So I wish, you know, I think if Knolly made the chain stay a little bit longer, instead of, you know, 131 or 132, whatever it is, go to like not 432 or so, 431, 32 ish. They go to like a 440. I think the Knolly would do really well if they made that a little bit longer. Just that difference. And I probably would climb and descend and everything just as well as a Privateer, if not better. If there was that difference. I guess the other difference is, you know, the geometry wise, because the head tube right now with the slack head angle, they're practically the same. The other difference is the seat tube angle. So the Privateer, since it's, you know, it's a fixed geometry, so that seat tube angle is, I think it's 78 degrees. Whereas here in the slack setting, this seat angle is, I think it's like 70, probably 74 or 20 or 75. So it's not, so it's more slack. It's not as steep. In the steep setting, it's, I think, 76 or almost 77 maybe. It's still, even in the steep angle, it's still slacker than the Privateer is. I much prefer the steeper, that 78, 79, whatever it is, 78-ish seat angle. That feels better than this slacker seat angle. As far as the stack height, I can't remember which one has the taller stack height. I think the Knolly might have a taller stack height by maybe about 10 millimeters or so. So I'm not sure, but, you know, because the different forks I have, I think the Fox 36 might have a taller axle to crown height than the Pike Ultimate, but I'm not sure on that either. I was trying to look up that specification, but couldn't find it, or I didn't look, you know, deep enough. I just really briefly went to both websites onto the model, and I didn't see it after, you know, out the front page of the website. Maybe if I go into the manual or something, it might say it, but I didn't do that. Yeah. So interesting stuff right there. And that's at least, you know, my thoughts on the two. So overall, the Privateer is just a, you know, I think it's just a superior bike as far as what you get out of it. I'm not saying that it's superior, but like the components of, you know, the Knolly has higher end components, you know, more expensive components, or at least the stuff that matters. Well, actually, you know what? Not necessarily. Like, for example, the Privateer has a better seat post, dropper seat post than the Knolly. I think the Hunt wheels on the Privateer is better than the race face wheels that's on here. The wheels on here are, I don't like them, because, you know, it's a 36 tooth, or it's 36 point of engagement, which is over here 72 point. It's double. That helps a lot with technical climbing, and that's the reason why I actually just upgraded the rear wheel here to the higher model hub. So that way now I think it has 120 points of engagement, so it's a lot, you know, compared to that. So I actually haven't ridden it yet, so I'm gonna ride it this weekend and see how that goes. But yeah. So anyways, those are my thoughts for now. Wait until I dial the suspension on this a little better, and I will come back and revisit this. And I think it's not gonna be that much of a difference, because this thing, the suspension feels almost there. You know, it's like, again, I'm probably only like 1, maybe 2 clicks at the most away from the settings on each, you know, each of the settings for both front and rear, both high speed and low speed, compression and rebound for front and rear. Yeah, that's it for now. All right, thanks for watching.